Thank you so much for joining us on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse, powered by Atlanta Dispatch and Humblebee Enterprises. I'm excited to be here with our special guest, who is Gunnar Miller of 12 Point Logistics. But before we start, I just want to say, hey guys, consistency pays off. Okay, for all of you out there that are showing up for yourselves every single day, taking the time to create goals and then walk them down. Those things are really going to pay out. It's going to pay off. So just continue to do it. Your blessing is here. Your miracle is here. That silver lining is here. And with that being said, be where you said you're going to be, because those opportunities, they might come trying to look for you where you're supposed to be, and if you're not there, you might not be able to catch them in stride like you normally would. So just continue to be consistent. Kudos to you. You got it. And also, I'm going to be publishing that book pretty soon. That's going to be giving folks the fundamentals of dispatching. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, just be on the lookout. Hey, Gunnar, what's up, man? How you feeling, brother?
What's good, man? How are you?
I'm extremely blessed, sir. How you feeling today?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay? Is it windy at all? I had to step outside to do this. Is that all right?
I can hear you. I did hear that wind just a moment ago. Actually, I thought you were in traffic.
I hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, look, man, very blessed to have you here on stage. And, for the folks who have not heard of you just yet, they might not have been on the podcast or heard of the podcast. Can you please give us a background about yourself and, also segue into how you got into logistics?
Yeah, man. So, first of all, thanks for having me. Everybody that came into the clubhouse, thank you guys for joining in. It's always good to be able to answer some questions instead of having to ask the questions all the time. So, this is cool. But my name is Gunnar Miller. I'm born and raised Chattanooga, Tennessee. I played sports my whole life. Ended up going to UTC playing football. That's the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, for most of you people that probably don't know that. Go Mocs. But got out and got into professional wrestling the same month that I got into logistics. And then later on down the line, started doing a podcast, which I do weekly. And then that kind of went to bi-weekly and tri-weekly. And then just kind of pretty much whenever I could put one out. And, between that and family and work and fitness and all different things and all different hobbies, it's kind of made me a well-rounded, uh, you know, jack of all trades and a master of none, I guess we'll say. But I'm glad to be here and open to answer any questions anybody has.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, man, truly appreciate that. I mean, so look, what was that like, going from playing football to saying, what, maybe pro wrestling? Like, what was that mindset? Because it's not a normal trajectory, okay? Maybe for, Rocky Maivia,
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
you know what I mean? What was that like when you were going through that process?
Yeah, so I've been a big pro wrestling fan my whole life. When I was 6 years old, I was fascinated with it. The guys on TV, big muscles and stuff that got me into working out and things. And, a lot of kids grow out of it, and so did I. I grew out of it around high school. And then when I got to college playing football, there's a lot of parallels, and you realize, you got Goldberg, Farouk, he was an All-American, Ron Simmons at Florida State. You got The Rock, Dwayne
Right.
Johnson, he played for the U. You got Roman Reigns right now, the top guy, played for Georgia Tech. Brock Lesnar tried his hand at professional wrestling or professional football with the Vikings. So there's several guys that have made it and done really well. And I was like, man, I'm 6 foot, I'm 220, 230 pounds. I feel like I got the look to go do it. I'm gonna give it a shot. So I actually used to paint my face up like the Ultimate Warrior. And if people don't know who that is, you can Google him. He's got the face paint, Ultimate Warrior. And he would always run to the ring. He was full of passion, full of intensity. And I just loved that. And I was never the most naturally gifted athlete, so I had to use the weight room and the work ethic and have a little bit of a gimmick to myself in a way, kind of like a bunch of people have on their podcasts and they're, in this logistics community that we're building across LinkedIn and now Clubhouse, which I'm glad to be a part of. But when I was doing this and painting my face in college, my second year starting, I started as a freshman, got to play all 4 years, started all 4 years. I was very lucky to do that at Division I level. And when I got to my second year, I got comfortable. I felt like I was a part of the team now. I didn't really have to prove myself. So I started painting my face like the Ultimate Warrior. We played our first game against Nebraska that season, and I had a really good game. And the newspaper article came out and was like, why'd you paint your face? I told him it was because of the Ultimate Warrior. And then he found the article and reached out to me. And then I developed a relationship with the Ultimate Warrior from then on. And he got me in contact with the WWE, and they reached out to me. So I got recruited my last 2 years when I was in college to be a professional wrestler. So when I got done with college, instead of doing the pro combine like most guys do to try to get a pro day, I trained for my WWE tryout, which was in June the following year. And I got into it, and I thought that it was going to be tough. It's definitely not fake. It's choreographed. There's a predetermined winner, but I've hurt myself just as much in wrestling as I have in professional or in football. And so you definitely get some bumps and bruises, and the road is terrible. So when I was in the logistics and wrestling, I was working, a full logistics schedule, which we all know is stressful, right? You don't work 40 hours a week. You work every hour a week. And then I was also wrestling, so I would travel Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday I did this for 4 years, 2014 to 2018 before I blew my knee out. And that was a rough grind, man. It took a lot out of me. And then I took a little time off and got back into it. Now I just do it once a month because my little one loves it. He's 6 years old. He's front row. He knows everything about it. He's a wrestling freak. And I literally only do it to put a smile on his face. And when he tells me I can quit, I'll quit.
Hey man, well that's a beautiful background. I love the story. I mean, I definitely was an Ultimate Warrior fan growing up, but I can't lie to you. First off, I was a huge wrestling fan. Like I knew everybody, but I did grow out of it around 10ish, maybe 11, when I found out, that it was choreographed. I was so I was distraught, man. I was like, what? But so my guy
Yeah,
back in the
it
day.
gets.
Go ahead. Okay, okay. So my guy back in the day was Tatanka. Of all people, I like that fella, man. He used to come out there with his Native American gear on, and I really, really just enjoyed everything that he was doing. And then, of course, I did know about Farouk being I did know about Farouk being at Florida State. I found that out later, but I can also see how you got that whole entire pedigree of football players coming over to the wrestling, pro wrestling, especially Goldberg, man. That spear, the thought of that spear was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So I appreciate you giving me the background, on the wrestling. And so as
Speaking of
far as
trucking, there's one
gimmicks,
right there.
go ahead.
So speaking of trucking, that was the horn from one right down the road. Sorry about that. You keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah, I did hear air horn. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. As far as the gimmicks, like, did you get the opportunity to choose that now, like at this level, or do you feel like you can't change it because it's kind of like, you know, it's your persona at this point?
Yeah. So when I got into wrestling, never went in with a gimmick. I just was me. Like everybody said, you got to have a wrestling name, or, like back in the day, there was like, Duke the Dumpster Drozy, the Junkyard Dog, like stuff like that. Well, we're in an era now where everything's realistic, and you can Google a person and find everything you want to know about them, even if they don't want you to know it. So, I mean, I'm Gunnar Miller. Like that was who I was. Uh, Now, there's a little bit of a struggle with that because once you get into wrestling and you realize maybe you're best as a heel for non-wrestling fans being the bad guy, the villain, and I was a more natural heel. I think it was just my face. People didn't like it for some reason. So now I got to be Gunnar Miller, the guy who's actually a really nice guy who would pretty much give you the shirt off my back or do anything for you. But now I got to be Gunnar Miller, the guy, and most people hate me because I'm the bad guy and I'm having to play this heel gimmick. And that carries over into real life. And then people really start hating you because you're bad. And you're like, dude, yeah, I understand I'm bad in a ring and I cut promos and I might call this person fat just to get them to react because it's an emotional thing and you got to pull the emotion out. And that's the whole thing of professional wrestling. But then at the end of the day, it's like, dude, I will take pictures of all your kids. I'll sign everything. I'll give you action. Like, what do you want? So, um, it was a little bit strange when it gets to that, and you got to figure out how to wade through those waters. But once you do, it's good, and I am who I am, and I'm happy to be it.
Yes, sir, man. But that's interesting that you said about the gimmicks when it comes to content creation. I don't, I haven't seen too many, but it does make me think about wrestling because I was going to ask you, is just like, as far as gimmicks, man, did you ever want to do something like Mankind and have that very grotesque sock or, pass out pink eyes like Rikishi was doing? You know what I mean? Did you ever consider that stuff?
As far as like the crazy matches,
Well, no, the actual their signature moves. This brother had a sock that he was sticking in everybody's mouth, and this other guy was sitting on everybody's face.
yeah, no, I never thought about doing any of that. I just kept it very sports based, realistic. That was
No, I feel you, man.
always my thing. But so what I did, I studied all the guys that made it. I studied all the guys that made it, and I decided to pick one move from each person that was a former professional football player or college football player turned professional wrestler that was successful, and my move set is based off of that.
Okay.
So I some people call it stealing. I call it honoring. I honor all
Yeah.
the former professional football players, college football players that paved the way into that road and became successful, and I do one of their moves in each of my matches.
Yes, sir. No, I definitely agree with that. There's this thing of paying homage. Even my wife got this book called How to Steal Like an Artist. I didn't read it, but what I imagine is saying that some pretty good people did some pretty amazing things. So if you want to, honor it by doing it, you can do that. So I don't think that's anything wrong with that. Yeah, but that's dope, man. So when it comes to like, the putting both of those things together, do you feel like there's something that you could have only gotten from wrestling that has helped you in any way when it comes to being a freight broker?
People ask. I've actually been asked that question quite a bit, and
Hmm.
I never really had a real answer. Um, but in professional wrestling, there's a hustle. So in the independent scene, what most people don't know is you don't get really paid. Like people don't get rich on the independent scenes unless you're signed by WWF back in the day or WWE now or even now AEW because there's kind of a cross promotional brand that you can make a little bit of money with those guys. Unless you're signed by them, you don't make money. Like for all those years, I was traveling to Atlanta, Tampa, New York, Washington D.C., Chicago. I was in Atlanta every weekend, and then I'd go down to Charlotte, and that was kind of my loop. And I would get paid $20. So how do you make that trip worth it? Because $20 doesn't even cover the gas, right? So how do you
Right.
make it worth it? Well, you got to build a brand and you got to sell yourself. So what I decided to do was come up with the Gunner logo. My Gunner logo was pretty much the Top Gun logo, just with Gunner. Created shirts. I found a local person around town to, make shirts for $4, and I'd sell them for 20, and I'd sell out of shirts everywhere I'd go. And then I made hats. I get hats made for 10, sell them for 30. Keychains. Get keychains made for 10 cents a keychain, sell them for 5, stuff like that. So you get that hustle. And now you're talking to people in between shows. You set up a booth and you start moving your merch. And that kind of it's brokering, right? You're just brokering out your stuff. So when I was doing that, I was brokering and I was more focused on my wrestling stuff. But when I got into sales at 12 Point, I realized, oh, this is not too different than wrestling. I've got to promote all my stuff online. I've got to come up with a brand and I've got to figure out a way to get something at a certain price and sell it at another price. And am I going to do it like every other broker is going to do it? And I'm going to post loads up on Dad or Truck Stop and just post and pray? No. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it the professional wrestling way. So when I came over to LinkedIn and really hit it hard, I literally told everybody in the office, I said, hey guys, watch out. I'm about to start pro wrestling LinkedIn. And the first company I went after was Steam Logistics. And I was like, they don't know I'm in the storyline, but buddy, here we go. I'm playing. They're the bad guys, and I'm the good guy, and I'm about to say some stuff. It might not be true, it might be fake, but you know what? We're about to cause some drama. And for literally
Job.
2 months, my number one viewers on my profile, still to this date, is Steam Logistics. So that though they got the traction going for me getting the logistics side of my podcast out, and I really appreciate them because I agree with a lot of the things they do. I just had to say I didn't because I have that pro wrestling storyline aspect. I know the psychology. I know how to get a reaction out of somebody, even if it's a good thing or a bad thing. And That I feel like professional wrestling helped me a lot in my social media that helped my logistics. But as far as like, did pro wrestling help logistics? No, but it definitely helped me sharpen my skills when it came to talking. If you can cut a promo in front of thousands of people, you can do a cold call. Sometimes a cold call is more frightening than a 2,000 person promo. But, when those start to mesh, it's pretty good, man. It's fun.
No, I love that. I definitely love that. I mean, I feel like that same. I feel like I got that same experience once I started operating more on Clubhouse. I've always been the friend out of the group that if somebody had to go talk to somebody new, it's probably going to be me. I have no issue talking to new people, but it was the public speaking aspect that it wasn't my first choice. But just operating on this platform so much, it makes that new call to a broker to call about a load all the easier. Now I'm very relaxed. What type of relationship are we going to build off of this conversation versus the nerves of making sure I say the right things? It kind of just helped me understand that people are people. So let's people together.
That's it, man. Think about this. Like, everybody gets so upset when I have new sales guys come in, or people like doing cold calls or whatever. It's like, but what if they say this, or what if I say this wrong and they don't like that? Who cares? Like, people are
Yeah.
people. People don't just sit at a desk all day and go, I'm logistics and I'm right about everything. And if you say something I don't like, I'm never talking to you again and I'm going to blast your company and everyone's never going to talk to you. No, it's not like that. Like, people have families. People go through hard times. People, go through phases where maybe they're working out and getting in really good shape. And then maybe something comes up and maybe they're not. Maybe somebody hangs up on you just because of something that's happening at the house. How many? There's what, 670 people, 19 in here right now. I think so. Of all the people in here right now, I guarantee you, every single person has had an issue come up in their life, whether it's at home or whether it's with a family member or whatever, my friend, whatever, to where you were thinking about it as you were driving to work, and when you got to work, somebody came up to you and said something you didn't like, and you snapped off on them. You didn't mean to. That's not who you are, but you did it just because we're human and we have emotions and we're not perfect. So you got to understand that when you're talking to anybody, and just ask good questions. If the logistics questions aren't working, say, hey, man, obviously we're not a good logistical fit for you. I understand that, but how's your day going? Get
Right.
off the subject. Just talk to a human. We are humans. We have all these different things where we want to fight to each other and go into wars. It's been from the beginning of time. Could you imagine if planet Earth just came together and became humans instead of these different countries and these different colors and these different groups? Dude, we're humans. We're all humans. That's it. We're skeletons and we're humans. That's all we are.
I hear you, man. I heard the passion coming out. I definitely did. But again, I hope people take heed to the fact that, it's not that serious. Things come a little bit smoother with repetition. So you can kind of begin to anticipate what's going to come next and how you're going to answer and even overcoming objections. But, at the end of the day, you just got to get those 10,000 hours in so that no matter what the situation is, you feel very confident in your ability as whether you're a sales professional or whatever. Just that you can handle yourself in that moment. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Was there anything that you feel like that you've gotten from logistics that I don't know if this would be the case, but anything that you got from logistics that helped you when it came to wrestling? Maybe the business side of things, or anything that would have come strictly from brokering or logistics that aided you with the wrestling side of your world.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it did. I never really like reached out to promoters to get on shows. Every show that I ever did, people reached out to me. I kind of just built my name up that way through word of mouth. If I could go back to the 2014 version of me, I would have taken a more sales approach and cold called promoters and tried to get on shows and prove a point, because I did have a good look and I was in shape and I stood out on most independent wrestling cards because I was your prototypical old school look like a wrestler. You'd be surprised what a lot of these guys look like on these shows. Not to make fun or poke fun or whatever, but like, these guys just don't look like tough guys. And I'm not saying I can beat anybody up, but I look like I could beat up the majority of the guys I get in the ring with. And that's all it is. It's an illusion. It's a movie, right? So there's none of that. But I will tell you this: podcasting. I started my podcast in January of 2020, and
Hmm.
podcasting is what has changed my logistics. you,
Okay.
you you say put in the work, right? You say put in the hours, the 10,000 hours. So I was doing a show every Thursday for an hour, sometimes more, and then I started bumping it to 2 or 3 shows. So I was getting 1 to 3 plus hours of public speaking time every week. That was something that
Hmm.
I can't replace. And
Right.
now when I go and sit in front of a customer, or if I sit in front of a Zoom, or if I make a phone call, it literally affects me absolutely zero. You called me earlier, and we'll pull the curtain back. You called me before we got on here, and you go, "Hey man, do you want to know anything that's going to go on with this show?" And I said, "No," because you can take this in any direction you want to take this in, and I'm comfortable. I have no problem. Like, I'm not sitting at a desk. I'm not like very tense and tight and stressed out about this. Dude, I was eating dinner with my family, lost track of time, stood up, went to the parking lot. My family brings me my kid. Now I'm sitting in the car having a conversation, and there's no telling where this is going to go. But it's awesome because you're cool, your community's cool, and I'm happy to do it, man. So that's what it's about.
Yes, sir. Man, I've definitely been in that exact spot. Left the restaurant just a wee bit early to conduct one of these conversations. So, I've definitely been there and I understand. Look, how did you get hooked up with 12 Point? 12 Point Logistics. Was that something that you sought after, or did the opportunity come to you?
So, now this has got a pro wrestling twist to it. So, I started out at Lipsy Logistics in 2014, and Johnny Jones, I love that man. He's the president of that company, and I played ball with his son in high school, and he gave me an opportunity when a lot of people didn't, because my name was circling around the pro wrestling scene, and there was articles out there, and nobody wanted to put uh, invest money into me for me to leave them in 6 months.
Right.
Johnny didn't care. Johnny was like, "Hey man, if you get that opportunity, I'll still keep you on salary and I'll sponsor you, and you keep doing your thing." So that was pretty much what Lipsy was at the beginning. They were sponsoring me pretty much to wrestle, and then I'd come in and do track and trace and all that. And then that became more of a career, and I got more serious about it towards the end. As you just learn things, right? Four
Right.
years into logistics, you just kind of learn some things. From that point, the guy that trained me in wrestling, his wrestling name was Ace Rockwell. His name is Josh Massey. His brother and another man, Jake Lowe, Jordan Massey and Jake Lowe, were offered the opportunity to start up 12 Point Logistics. Daniel Price and Tommy Derryberry are the owners, and they invested money into it because they didn't know logistics. They are in the tank. They're in the chemical business. They've ran tankers and stuff for their own company, but not the brokerage side. So they started 12 Point Logistics, and Josh the entire time was like, "Hey guys, you guys need to go after Gunner. Go get Gunner." Now, I'd never sold anything. I'd never sold logistics. I'd done everything in operations, high level, but I'd never sold anything. And they reached out to me. I believe it was 2019, and I was like, "Nah, man, it's not a good fit. I'm safe where I'm at. I can't really make a lateral move right now. I'd have to go vertical, so not a good fit for me." And I didn't trust myself, to be honest with you. Then some things happened, and I was at a point in my life where I'd recently had my current fiance, who I was dating at the time, is in my life, and her son, and he's 3, and you know when all that happens, things change, right? You want to make some more money, you want to take a little risk, and you got to. And she had a good job, and she was like, "Hey, I got you. If you want to take a risk, take a risk." And I was like, "All right, cool. If it comes back up, I'll take one." And then it was a couple of weeks later, they reached back out and said, "Hey, man, what you thinking?" So we negotiated a deal. I got a little bit of a vertical bump, but with commission this time. And then, I was like, "Let's see what happens." So I jumped over to the 12 Point. Now I was at a company, man, Lipsy Logistics, probably $100 million company, if not more. FEMA contracts, high level freight, big customers. You get to learn a lot. 100 people working there, legit office setting, right? And then I go over to 12 Point Logistics, and I walk in, and I'm sitting at a dinner table with a folding chair that I hit people with on the weekends. And there's 4 people in the office, and we're all looking at each other, and there's like one load on the board. And I'm
Right.
like, "Oh, okay. All right. I see what we got here." So I just start doing it, man. Start hitting the phones, cold calling, email blasting, following up, doing my thing. Second day on the job, landed the largest customer that we've had in our company, and landed a few after that with like some peak season stuff, and that kind of got us off and running. And then some other things started to pick up. With we specialize in some tanker freight as well from our asset side. And then we went from a $1 million company to a $6 million company when I came on. And then the next year it was $6 million to a $12 million company. Then we went into growth mode, and then we hired. We went from 4 people to 17 people, and that's where we're at right now. We're going to do over $20 million this year, and now we're looking forward to building towards the future. Now you got guys that have never really owned a company, ran a company, trying to figure that out, and it's really fun to do that with a good group of guys and a good team. So that's my 12-point story, man. We went from nothing to building a good little small business and trying to make a little bit of an impact in Chattanooga and in Freight Alley, as they call it.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I love that, man. I love a story of, just digging those heels in and say, this got to work. What
Dude,
else are we going to do? It has to work.
well,
You
hey,
know?
you know what? I say it was a risk, right? But I had such a good relationship with Lipsy and Johnny Jones that when I left, he goes, "Hey man, I just want you to know," and I love this man. Like I like there's like when you say like I love this man, there's few like men on the planet that I love, right? Teammates, family, parents, like that type of stuff. I love this man. He's a great
Mhm.
person, and he told me, he said, "Hey man, if things go belly up over there and you get in a bind," he goes, "You just come back and sit back at your desk, and we'll do the paperwork later." So that makes it that helps because that doesn't happen all the time in logistics. A lot of times you tell somebody you're leaving, they just walk you out. Like
Oh, true.
I
Those
told them I was leaving.
non-competes.
Yeah, I told them I was leaving. They paid me for 2 weeks. I wasn't even there for one of them, and then they told me that, gave me some money on the way out. Man, like they treated me really well. So I will never say a bad thing about that company. I will always go to bat for them. And if I ever was to get in a situation where I know I need a job, I know I can go back and help that family as well.
Oh, that is awesome, man. That is
Yeah.
awesome. I kind of have something similar, as far as I feel like Lipsy gave you your roots in this industry. And had it not been for my previous employer, I wouldn't know any of this. I wouldn't know dispatching domestically. I wouldn't know the inner workings of a warehouse. I wouldn't know a lot of the stuff. So it's kind of that same thing. The only difference was, well, similar. My wife, then girlfriend, was like, Jory, you want to do these things, and I support you to do these things. Go for it. I'm sitting there saying I want to own a warehouse, so I got to know how to operate a warehouse myself. And it was just the just having that understanding, that realization that I can hire somebody that has that skill. I don't have to have every
Yes.
piece of experience myself. But
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So definitely a great relationship with my previous employer as well. Um, so yeah, it definitely makes a difference because they even send me clients today. Dispatch
Yep.
clients, folks needing help in that aspect. So yeah, definitely appreciate them. So let me ask this: how is it working with tankers? That's one thing that I have been interested in that I haven't necessarily, had the ability to learn it. Like how's that
Yeah.
for you guys? Is it any hazmat? Like, do you feel like your carrier pool is large, or is there not that many that have that equipment type? Like, what's up?
Oh man. So there's some big boys out there, right? Like they're kind of the ones that are in the tanker world. They kind of handle a lot of it. And I'd say the tanker brokering pool is probably small because they're all kind of going after the same people. So you don't necessarily see a bunch of brokerages out there that's like, we specialize in tankers.
Mm,
So it's tough, man, and it's not as easy to teach somebody how to broker tanker stuff as it is to say, hey man, this is a full truckload. Just say if they can load less than 45,000 pounds, they can run this thing, right? So
mm,
it's not that easy. What I will say is that the owner of our company, Daniel Price, even though he doesn't know much about like the brokerage side of it, he understands making money in business and he knows chemicals really well. So he was dealing with your TQLs and your CH Robinsons and all these big dogs when they were coming to pick up his stuff. And to be quite honest with you, he just got tired of getting beat over the head with price.
right.
So he realized that he could probably do it for a little bit cheaper, and that's what we do. So the tankers run all of his freight. They run a little bit of other brokerages freight that have some bigger customers, not to some paint customers, right? That's big in the chemical world. Uh, I mean, if you can get it, go get it. Good luck. um, but so there's some of that stuff, and but as far as me knowing like the day-to-day tanker business, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I know, because I don't. I go out and I'll sell it, and as soon as somebody's interested, I'll say, "That's awesome, man. Let me get you on the phone with the president of our company because he knows what he's talking about."
Right.
You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
and people, and I think people respect that, and I think that's a lost art when it comes to sales in general. Sales guys think they have to know everything, and they try to answer every question before the question is even finished being asked, and they don't even understand what the customer is asking for. And I would say that if you're just more willing to let people know that you don't know, but you can find the answer out, and if you can't, you will let them that you know you can't find the answer out. They respect that much more than they respect, yeah, man, I know everything. And then maybe you lie, maybe you accidentally say something you didn't mean to say, and then but you didn't mean to, like you just thought you were saying it the correct way, and then something happens on the first load. Now you get cut off with a $1 billion customer, which has happened with us because we didn't know what we were doing, right? Or we said something wrong and the expectations weren't set in stone. So I think it's just be upfront, be transparent, and you can do that with anything, but especially when it comes to tankers. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't pretend.
Right.
Try to
Right.
figure it out before you do. And like I said, I don't know much about it, but I do know how to get some of it, and that's by passing it off to the guys that do. So I'll say that.
No, I love that, man. I mean, because I agree with that wholeheartedly. Sometimes I might even get caught up in that situation of I might say something very definitively, and I'm like, is that right? I mean, I get caught up all the time. My wife, so it's a joke at this point. But I do. Whenever I am aware that I don't know something for sure, I am very, very cognizant of saying that bad boy up front of, I don't know. Let me
Yeah,
get back to you. And there's power in that. Actually, there's a lot of power in that because you
yeah.
don't feel like you have to put on, and that's when you feel good, when you don't have to feel as though you got to put on to act like you know everything.
Well, and eventually you will know it, but you just don't right now. When you don't know something, and then you have to ask somebody how to do something, well, guess what? Now you know it. So the next time you get that question, you know the answer. But
Right.
you got to be able to humble yourself a little bit and cut down your ego and be like, okay, there's some things I don't know, and I need to learn. I need to ask for help. So many people are so scared of asking for help because they don't want to be replaced. People want to help. People at the top of your companies want to help. People at the bottom that might have some information that you don't have want to help you because they want to look good. Just ask people and people will help you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is there a specific, commodity or equipment type that you do feel as though that's your niche? That's what you do.
I would say, listen, I've listened to all the freight broker training guys on YouTube, like all four of them, and we all know who they are. So, they say riches are in the niches and all this stuff. Yeah, I definitely think if you're a cradle to grave person, and you run your entire account the way you run your account and you're hands on with everything, I think there is riches in the niches, and you do need to be specialized. And you can always, go into other areas as well and learn other things, but you're going to probably do one thing. We run a split model operation at our place. We have operations and sales, so everything we get gets handed off to an account management team, a carrier sales team, a CSR team, all that stuff. So I don't necessarily have a niche per se. You know, if I don't understand something, like I said, I'll go to somebody that does, or I'll call somebody at Lipsy and get some education. But I'm not just being like, listen, I like Georgia, Tennessee, Florida. I want drive-in freight. I only want them shipping between 8 and 2, and I'm only running 400 miles because I got a bunch of guys that can do that. And I'm not going to do that. If you move it on the road, I can do it. I'll figure it out. I've got a network of people that can help me, and they're willing to, and I'll get it done. So my niche is kind of, I'll do it all, but I'll also tell you what I can't, and I'll be completely honest with you.
Yes, sir. No, I feel it. You ever work with any box trucks?
We've done box trucks. So we've done box trucks, we've done LTL, we've done rail, we've done air. We haven't done like international as far as like vessels, but I have in the past at my previous company. Um, I've done a lot of specialized freight when it comes to FEMA. Very, very important, high priority missions that have high visibility. I've done those. We do open deck. We just jumped into the open deck market in with 12 Point. this past year, we hired an open deck manager, and he started training up our other guys on how to do open deck. So now we've got 6 guys in the office that know open deck when 2 years ago we had 0 and had to turn down a bunch of freight. So, of course, we do full truckload. I mean, I would say we've moved almost every different type of equipment that you could possibly move at a logistics company. We've done it. We've partnered with warehouses. We've moved the racks and the stuff on the inside. We've we've had a good time, man. We've done a good job. Now the only problem is we haven't done it in high volumes. Like we don't have like dedicated contracts with these type of people. We just kind of have like spot freight here and there, and that's the one complaint I have. And what we could do better, and what I could do better, is getting dedicated business and not having to rely on constantly soliciting, constantly reaching out, and using your relationship to get freight on a daily basis. We could use a little bit more dedicated freight.
Right. No, I definitely respect that. I understand it, especially as an independent dispatch agency owner. You can leverage the load boards all day, but it is going to be a little bit smoother in your operation if you have consistent opportunities where you don't have to hunt and kill every single day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but you mentioned something that's, it's kind of the season. FEMA. What does that do? How does this season right here dictate a freight broker's life?
Well, I got a good story for you. So, we used to have a hurricane room, is what we'd call it at Lipsy, and that was so much fun, man. They'd put 10, 12 guys in a room or gals, and you'd go in there, and this is what they'd tell you. All right, so we're going to work until hurricane season's over because you never know when you might get an opportunity to run a mission. And on top of that, you're not allowed to leave for lunch. Not that you're not allowed. Well, you're not allowed to leave for lunch. We're going to cater lunch, so that's a perk. It sounds good. It's not. Um, and you're going to work till the job gets done. So that being said, we're going to want you there a little bit before 8 because that's when everything's going to kick off, and you're going to stay each night until we tell you to go home. Okay. Now there was one year. It was when the hurricane hit Houston, and then it went back through and destroyed Puerto Rico. I think we all remember that, right? So that hurricane hit, and we worked 74 consecutive days averaging 16-hour days. And that's no
Wow.
lie. Everybody that I worked with would vouch for that. They would tell you the exact same thing. And it was absolutely miserable. And I was told that it would be the hardest thing that we ever did in the history of our logistics career. So here's what we had to do. We had to, all the capacity was gone because of Houston, right? But now we
Hmm.
had to load ships and send water to Puerto Rico because Lipsy Logistics has the largest water contract through FEMA, which is the number one emergency item when a hurricane hits, because if you don't have water, you die. So we had to find single chassis, and we leased them from individual trucking companies. And then we had to have a power only unit go pick up the chassis, and then go pick up a container, and then go get loaded with water, and then go to the port. And then we had to buy a boat, and then we had to send the boat to Puerto Rico, and then we had to send our employees to Puerto Rico to unload the boats and distribute the water. And that's a true story. And you can find articles about that. Lipsy Logistics they saved the day when it came to Puerto Rico that year. So how many loads was it? The first mission we got was, and this was overnight. Hey guys, we need 650 trucks loaded on ships in 3 days. We did that, and then it went to 1,200. It just kept going up, man. It was crazy. And the VP of the company at the time, Stephen Grace, who's awesome, he goes, "Man, you guys did a great job. I know you guys are stressed. That's the hardest thing you'll ever do in transportation." So knowing that, I'm not scared of anything. So FEMA, anything, bring it. You need 17 loads on a mission, cool, no problem. We did 1,200 one time. I ain't worried about it. So it is FEMA season. I called you earlier looking for some help on some things, and the way FEMA works is they send out missions and it goes to bids, and then as soon as the bid's over, they award it to somebody. And when they award it, you got to get it done. Whatever you bid, it might be a little bit more expensive than normal. You got to get the job done, because if you don't, you get cut off. When you get called for FEMA, it's 2 years. And that takes you out of the DOD, the GSA, NASA. You don't get to work any of that governmental contracts, and that's where the money is, because they have a budget they have to spend no matter what. If no hurricane hits this year, they got to spend hurricane money, so they got to reposition stuff. So it's fun, man. It's stressful, but I live for that. I'm a football player. I'm pro wrestling. I love that stuff.
Yes, man. Yes, sir. I mean, I feel you there. And I did happen to come across the person that won the bid that we were talking about today.
I
The
heard you talking earlier about that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Hey,
It's a
funny story about that. You want to hear a funny story? A little behind the scenes scoop.
Go for it.
That person don't have those loads anymore.
What?
Yep. So we bid a certain price, and I heard you talking about a price on yours. You said like 2,500 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they have a little bit more in it, obviously. First of all, let's say they have 3 grand in the load, or 3,200 in the load, or 3,500 in the load. Ain't gonna do it. Ain't gonna do it. So the loads were coming out of Fort Worth and going into Montgomery, the Maxwell Air Force Base. Okay, so you're looking at that's about a $1,600 trip if you go one way. So here's how you're going to price it, in my opinion. You're going to have to round trip that on that high, and then you're going to have to add about 1,000 to it. So unless you're in that 4, 5, even higher range, you ain't gonna get the job done because those guys have to drop their trailers. They're not getting paid as much money as they want to drop their trailers, and they're going to use that as an excuse even though they could run power onlys and shuttle and make all the money they want to during hurricane season. Because if you look on DAT right now, there's 150 loads posted up power only from Alabama to Milton, Florida. It's like Global Trans has all of them. Whoever's got the scoop, we need to steal them. and
Right.
so it's fun, but that's what happens. So you bid because you want to be competitive, and you bid good money. You're like, there's no way it's gonna cost this much money. But when you suck up that much capacity at one given time that has to pick up a load at the same time, you'll be surprised what you got to pay for these FEMA loads. I've seen some crazy prices get put out on FEMA, and people are afraid to quote that because they don't want to be looked at weird. It's emergencies. These people down there are struggling, man. Like they're getting hit with 155-mile-per-hour winds. They ain't worried about money. They're worried about making sure these people have water, have shelter, have MREs to eat, have lights, have power. That's why there's 15,000 linemen down there right now trying to fix the power. Like they've learned from their mistakes, and they're trying to do a much better job of positioning the items everyone needs prior to the event occurring instead of waiting for the hurricane to hit and then doing it afterwards. So you got to give props to FEMA on that and the government. And you got to give props to all these carriers and these brokers that are getting the jobs done because it's not easy, man. It's good money, but it's not easy.
Agreed, man. And look, since you've been in the business so long of supporting FEMA, have you gotten any tips or tricks on how you as the freight broker can get paid faster? Because historically, I hear that this is months on months on months
Yeah.
before you actually get paid. So how's
Yeah,
that?
I'll tell you this. So I'm not going to say you're going to get paid faster, but I'll tell you get paid for sure. So there's been times where we've ran a bunch of loads and we didn't keep up with the paperwork or we didn't track it as well as a broker. Sometimes that's hard. And we lost a bunch of loads, a bunch of money because we didn't have proofs. So the way this works, FEMA sends out a BOL, and they want their BOL signed by the driver. So what you'd want to do, the first thing you want to do is take all the money out of the BOL so you're not showing everybody what you're getting paid because you're still going to pay them well. But you want to go in, edit all the PDFs, and then here's the trick. What most people don't do: when you put somebody on a load, you got to have them take pictures. You want a picture of all the numbers and letters on their truck. You want a picture of both sides of the trailers. You want a picture of all the tires just in case there's a blowout. You want proof that these tires have been checked beforehand. You want a picture of the license plate. If you're going into an Air Force base, if you're going into a port or something like that, you want pictures of their driver's license so that you can prove that he's a U.S. citizen, because if they get to a spot where they got to have a TWIC card, they'll just drop their trailer off and run out so they don't, get put in jail or something by the military police. So I would say I would make sure you have all your T's crossed and all your I's dotted. And I would get pictures of absolutely everything that you would normally just write down on paper or enter into your system. Upload that into each load and submit that with the BOL to FEMA. And I promise you, you will get paid, and you'll get paid a little bit faster than everybody else because you have all the proof.
Right, right, right. No, I hear you, man. I definitely hear you. Do you feel like, I know you work with a big dog, somebody that had been doing, in the game for a long time, but do you feel like when it comes to FEMA loads, like a, a freight brokerage actually having their own factoring company, to pay quickly, do you think that there's any value in that, or you think you might as well just wait, as a freight broker or freight
Uh,
freight brokerage?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's very important to pay your carriers. Even if you kind of, take some losses or get, the bad luck of the draw on the back end, that's a paperwork issue with you and your customer. That's not the carrier's fault. The carrier's job is to take the load and deliver it and to give you all the paperwork and to make sure it's done and it's serviced correctly. That's the carrier's job. So those guys need to get paid. And for the brokers and the companies that don't pay carriers that do the job that they're supposed to do, that's BS, man. And we need to got to get rid of these people. And there's a bunch of them out there. Trust me. There's a bunch of scam artists in the brokering land. I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but that's why we have a bad rap. That's why when you call a shipper and you're like, "Hey, man, I'm with 12 Point Logistics," they're like, "Hang up. We don't deal with brokers. Brokers are bad. Truck drivers don't like brokers." Well, here's the problem. The trucking industry stops if we just get rid of all the brokers. So everybody needs to pump the brakes and realize that there is a bunch of good brokers out there, that just the ones that are really bad make all the other good ones also look not as good. So I would say, as far as the factoring company, if you have your own factoring company, especially if it's in house, that's fantastic. If you have a good factoring company that can pay, that's good as well. But don't wait to get paid by the customer before you pay your carriers, because you won't be paying these carriers for like half a year or up to a year. And then those carriers are not going to run any more freight for you anyways, and they're going to give you bad freight guards and bad reviews, and it's just going to be an uphill battle. So pay the guys that do the job when the load's delivered. Make sure they keep up with all the paperwork. Set the expectations. If they take care of everything, take care of them, and then put the pressure on you to do the right job for FEMA to provide all the right paperwork they ask for in a timely manner in order for you to get paid.
Yes, sir. No, I agree. I agree. Actually, I kind of learned that lesson, myself when I first started dispatching. But you did say something that I'm an advocate for independent dispatch agencies, obviously, because I own one.
Mm-hmm.
But I take every opportunity to say, hey, man, there are some pretty great independent dispatch agency out there too, and it's the select few that are making a bad name. So it's kind of similar to what you guys are going through with the perception of what a broker is and whether they're necessary or even liked or fair. All these things, and I'm interested what the FMCSA is going to talk about and what they're going to rule in November pertaining to independent dispatch agencies. But yeah, so it's similar plight. So I'm interested to see what's going to go down with that. But what I was going to is I definitely had to learn from experience, even from other dispatchers, about how if a carrier does the job, this is the very first thing that needs to happen. I learned dispatching working for a corporation, so it's a little bit different than when you're dispatching company drivers versus independent owner operators. So I definitely had a crash course, but I'm very grateful for what's her name? Dang, L&T Elite.
Okay.
Lottie. She hooked me up. She gave me a lot of games. So appreciate you, Lottie. If you hear this or when you hear this, appreciate you. Because I definitely still operate with that in my tool bag. But so look, I guess I know that we're going to be wrapping this conversation up soon. Peak season is approaching. There's some folks who say maybe it's not going to be the same peak that we were used to in previous years. Do you feel like you guys are gearing up to handle a lot of freight to move come October and November, or do you feel like you still haven't seen where it's coming in at?
So our top customers that we have that we do the most volume with are not in retail. Most of our customers that we do the most volume with are building materials, the tanker type stuff, a lot of open deck type stuff. So I would say, as far as peak season, we do have one of the big three that we deal with, and obviously everybody, well, I guess big four now. You got FedEx, UPS, Amazon, and USPS. So I dealt with all of them at Lipsy, and now through the way I work over there in the night shift for some of those, one of those guys came over and gave me some freight when I came over here. So, we're in the mail business during peak season a little bit, not as much as a lot of people. Like last year, I think we had 11 lanes, and this year we're looking to get in the 20s. But still, that's a big deal. And from what I've heard, last year they were very loose, very because they had so much freight, right there, and it was backed up from COVID. So they were very loose on their requirements and their standards. You could be a little bit late to pick up. If you had lanes that overlapped, it was all right, that type of stuff. From what I'm being told this year, they're getting a lot tighter this year. Standards are going back up. Expectations are pretty tight. The USPS is expecting a 95% on time service. So, and as we all know in trucking, yeah, if people ask, hey man, what's your service? 98%. Well, no, it's not. First of all, it's almost impossible to be 98% service. You can say you are, and you can tweak your system, and you can make it look like you are. That's awesome. I mean, good for you, whatever you want to do. But we all know things happen in trucking. Drivers are going to break down. Drivers are going to lie to you. Customers are going to put you in situations to where it's almost impossible, and you're going to accept it, and you're going to try to get it done, but you're going to tell a little white lie to them because they told a little white lie to you. Things are just not perfect in trucking, right? So I think it's gonna be tough for it to be 95% this year, but it's a good standard to have. But I'm actually happy that USPS is like, hey, we're looking for 95%. They're not like, your UPSs, your FedExes, your Amazons being like, we want 98, 99% because our assets do that. It's like, yeah, because you guys don't let them sleep or enjoy the holidays. Like you have to work 24/7. But I think it, it's going to be tough this year. I think that the volume's still going to be there. I mean, I haven't seen a change in any of the USPS lanes. I think that people are going to keep buying stuff like with drop shipping and Prime going to your door and all this stuff. Like people are still purchasing things at a like a record level. Like it hasn't dropped off. Inflation's up. Salaries are down, and according to that, we're going through a recession. All this stuff, but like people are still buying stuff that doesn't matter. Like people are still buying $1,000 TVs when we're in a recession. Doesn't make sense to me. But we're as Americans, we're consumers. We're the biggest consumers in the world, and we're going to consume. So I don't see anything dropping off. I can see their standards raising. I can see a bunch of people getting kicked out this year due to service failures. But I think next year we're back in the same spot. It's going to be loose. It's going to be a bunch of stuff. People are going to be moving things around. So right now is a good opportunity to get involved with a UPS, a USPS, an Amazon, a FedEx, because they're going to be accepting some people trying to get some better prices and stuff. And if you can handle those standards, then you'll get more freight next year in a little bit looser year. But I mean, I've done this now since 2014, so I'm coming up on almost a decade, and it's pretty much been the same thing every year, if not worse. So I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is at this point.
Right, right. So look, we're gonna be I'm gonna ask my last question unless something just comes to me. But if there were any folks that were in the audience that had any questions for this brother, VP of Sales for 12 Point Logistics, also professional wrestler, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll bring you up to the stage. But I guess my last question would be if there was a mom and pop shop that was interested in growing with you guys during this peak season, like what were some of those things that you'd be looking for them to do in order for them to feel comfortable to scale, and be able to grow their company with you providing them the freight?
Okay, so you're talking about a mom and pop trucking company with a small fleet, 5 trucks, something like that.
Yeah, well, let's not five, because five you've already gone over a couple hills. You already made it to a certain level. Let's say two
Okay.
trucks. Because two
Yeah.
trucks, one of those trucks break down. It's hard to keep running. Three
Yeah.
trucks, cool. So let's say two trucks.
All right. So here's what I would do. If you wanted to work with us and your trucking company, you got 2 trucks, and let's just assume they're solo drivers, not teams, because a lot of this expedited freight, they're going to want teams cross country. But several USPS lanes, you're going to be looking at, 400 or 500 miles. So you can do it in a day. And then depending on where you're at, you can take a little bit of a break, do it the next day. But it's, 26 days in a row, pretty much Thanksgiving. It's Black Friday to Christmas Eve is when you're running. So I would say during that time, if you can do it right, you're going to make more revenue during that period than you would be able to with any other book of business that you would have, because it's consistent and it's 6 to 7 days a week. So now I know that there's hours and stuff where you got to shut down. So what you might want to do if you own a company and you have 2 drivers, if you're the owner of said company, or if you have a wife that's coming from trucking, probably the best situation would be to have 2 trucks, 2 trailers, and 4 people that can operate a truck. That would be the best situation to make a lot of money during peak. And then you would just put those guys in a truck for a month and say, listen, We're going to start one of you in Atlanta. We're going to start, and we're going to get the Atlanta to Denver lane. Or no, let's call it, you're going to get Charlotte to Atlanta. One of you going to start in Charlotte. One of you going to start in Atlanta. And you guys are just going to swap places. And when y'all get to the next spot, put the other person in the truck so you guys can keep moving. Do that. And if you only have 2 trucks, pray that you don't break down. um,
Yeah.
it would really be a 3-truck job if you're wanting to get into USPS or UPS or anything like that, because you just can't risk it. Blowout, stuff like that, it gets pricey and it can shut you down, right? So I'd say if you wanted to jump into mail stuff and do it the right way and make the highest number of revenue with a small group, you would at least need 3 pieces of equipment, 3 trucks, 3 trailers, and 4 people that can drive. I think if you did that, I think you'd be all right.
Gotcha. Well, look, I appreciate that. We're gonna follow up, me and you, after the fact on that one. But we did have somebody join the stage. What's
All
up,
right.
D? How you doing today, man?
Good evening. How is everyone doing?
Good.
Good, good. Gunner, it's very nice having you on tonight. You were very interesting. I love your story through wrestling and then through transportation. It's very interesting. Back in the day, I was an old friend of Chris Benoit, so it's very
Oh
interesting how
wow.
you moved over
Yeah.
to wrestling. Yes. But I just wanted to mention something in general to the transportation and logistics community.
Let's go for
Today,
it.
um, today has been rough. I am a
Hmm.
broker, and of course, you guys know I move freight, but I also have relationships with people who are personally affected by what's happening right now with the hurricane.
Hmm.
And I just want to remind everybody, I know everyone's focused on FEMA and the money, but there are real people behind these situations that are going through some hard times. And, it was hard for me today because sometimes I would talk to drivers and they're gleeful, just super excited. What's my FEMA money? What's my FEMA money? And then the next person I talked to, the lady's like, oh, my house is flooding. I'm losing this. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
very traumatic day. And I just want to ask everybody to have a little bit of empathy because you don't, also, too, the brokers you speak to, you don't know if they're personally affected or if they know people that's personally affected. So while you're calling and you're excited and you're looking around for this FEMA freight, just I want to remind everybody that there just have a little bit of empathy. There are real people affected by this.
Absolutely,
Yes,
and
man.
I can second that. So, like I said earlier, when I was like, you know, these people need water to survive. These people need MREs to eat. These people need lumber. They need tarps. They need all this stuff for shelter. Like this is a big deal, and it goes much further than just making money during FEMA. Like when you get the opportunity to work with FEMA on one of these projects, you need to take that serious and think about it as you're working with the United States to go help fellow humans, right? We're moving supplies down there. So when we're talking to drivers, and we do run into money hungry drivers, they're like, I'm not doing this unless we get this because it's FEMA freight. Yeah, buddy, I get it. It's cool. It is FEMA freight, but guess what? We're trying to get water down there so people can live. We're trying to get shelter down there so people are safe. We're trying to get ladders down there so if people can get up out of their houses instead of being on their roofs, right? Like it is wild. It is crazy. It's a very stressful time. I hear you. I do hear you. And that message needs to be spread much more other than just, hey, here's FEMA freight. Here's how you service it. Here's how much money you can make. So I agree with you. Good, great point.
I appreciate you for coming up, D. Man, it, you saying that just makes me reminisce on just how many MREs I've actually eaten as growing up, being in a area that was affected by hurricanes. I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, so every single storm created some type of havoc. So we got all those supplies very, very regularly. So no, I definitely hear you. It's impacted my life, and I'm appreciative of you bringing that up. I definitely moved to Atlanta and found out that we're not as affected by those type of natural disasters, and I think I'm here. I don't think I'm going back to a coastline anytime soon. But thank you again, D. Always appreciative of you sharing your game, and Yeah, Gunner, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we closed out, brother?
No, I mean, hey, I'm thankful for the opportunity to come on. You guys are a great group. I appreciate all the questions and the conversation. I will do a little plug though. I will get my plug in.
Go
If you
for it.
go and if you like this type of stuff and you want to get to know me a little bit better, I've got years of content and hundreds of hours of footage on YouTube. It's the CWG podcast, that stands for Chat with Gunner. And then LinkedIn is my most used social media. I'm not very frequent on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm sorry, Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I just kind of get on those things and look around occasionally. But if you want to interact with me, get to know me, and do some other things, YouTube and LinkedIn is where I'm at. And I accept all connections, and I'll have conversations with everybody. And I'm looking forward to meeting as many people as I possibly can in the logistics and sales.
All right, bet. Well, go ahead and reach out to that brother, follow that brother. Next week, next week, you know that we partner with Freight Waves on Monday mornings. They're selling our team, so tune in Monday at 7:30 as we discuss where you should position your truck to take advantage of the marketplace. Next Wednesday, this is next Wednesday. The guys, I've been talking to him for a very long time. He has a very smooth brother, and he has some game about produce. That's what he do. He's a broker, but his number one product is produce. So I'm very interested to talk to him and allow him to share the game that he's been able to develop over the years. But we're just extremely grateful for the support. We're almost at, what's that, 20? We're at almost 29,000. I forgot. It's just growing. I appreciate all the support here at the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse. And if you need anything from me, just holler at me. Feel free to reach out to me via email or any of the social medias. Oh, also, we are running that 5K. That 5K is October 8th. It's going to be at the Atlanta Airport, Hartsfield Jackson. We're running on the runway. When I heard about that, I was just like, I can't miss this. I gotta be able to do this. So if you want to join the team, it is transportation and logistics. The website is www.atl.com/5K, and the password will be logistics. So just reach out to me if there's anything I can do. But I am truly appreciative of everybody. Gunner, you have a blessed day, sir.
You too, man. Thanks everybody, and thanks for having me on, boss. I'll get you on mine soon.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, peace.